Hi, everyone. We're back with Home Run Parents, and today we're going to be talking about teamwork. But first, let's introduce our group here today. I'm Karen Mills, and I'm in Jefferson County. Lisa?
Hey, I'm Lisa McMahon, and I'm in Roane County.
Heather?
I'm Heather Kyle Harmon, and I'm in Knox County.
And Sarah?
I'm Sarah Kite in McMinn County.
And Connie.
I'm Connie Greiner, and I'm in Campbell County.
Thank you. And we are so excited to be with you today. We are going to talk about teamwork. And so we'd like for you to be able to build a spirit of teamwork with your kids. So we're going to look at meeting your child's most significant needs, coaching, and what your child needs, creating memories for your child's Hall of Fame, and making tickets for parent-child activity, building a spirit of teamwork, benefits of cooperative co-parenting, and developing a plan, and then goals for cooperative co-parenting. And then we're going to look at how is your teamwork. So let's go ahead and jump right in with today's topic. And so in the last two sessions, you have worked on two major connections in your relationships with your children, as represented in the RAM through know and trust. Know involves your communication with your kids, which includes both how you talk with them and what you talk about. We called the first area your team talks. The second connection was trust, and what we call your team sportsmanship, and results from three crucial areas: the values that you live by and instill in your children, your relationship structure of rules and responsibilities, and your relationship strategies of handling challenges, conflicts, and discipline. A third way that closeness grows between you and your children is from what you give and receive from each other. From the ways that you develop a positive reliance between you and your children, this will be called your teamwork. This includes ways that you work together and play together. So why do you think teamwork is so important for a sports team? And what are some ways that a coach builds teamwork among the players? Some ideas are teamwork expresses the value of each player. It acknowledges the working together of different roles and strengths of the players. It requires sharing. Coaches inspire teamwork by treating players equally and fairly. And coaches talk about needing each other and taking care of each other and being selfless. What are some ways that you build a spirit of teamwork between you and your children? You might build a spirit of teamwork by supporting the individual pursuits of each of your kids, by having your children support each other with encouragement, positive compliments, attendance of events by siblings, showing interests, initiating conversations, and the activities of another family member. I have one child that plays baseball, and so we all go and watch him. And then I have one that's got a piano recital, and we're all going to go watch him at his piano recital. Just showing support is important in families. So what is a practical definition of reliance? If trust is a feeling of confidence that comes from your attitude or opinion of someone, then reliance is the trust in action. This is an act of looking to another or depending upon another to meet some need, wish, request, or desire. Trust is more of a belief or opinion of another that produces some emotions of confidence. So when you mistrust someone, you believe something about them that lowers your feelings of confidence in them. And when you have an increase in feelings of confidence, then that usually results from some change in what you think of that person, maybe your attitude or opinion of them. Reliance, on the other hand, is the act of depending on a person for some need or want. Therefore, it is possible to have a very low trust opinion of someone while having to completely rely on them. This obviously would create some mixed emotions, but it helps to distinguish the difference between trust and rely. What are some of the ways that your kids need you? This question tends to prompt parents to think more about personal and emotional needs of their children. what are some ways that your kids depend on you to meet their needs? So you might think of basic needs, like your kids need to be fed, they need a place to stay, they need clothes to wear, and they need a way to get to school and a way to get to ball practice. So what are some of those needs that you can meet for your kids? We have a stat sheet for you to think about. So what are the physical needs that your child needs? And how can you meet those needs? What are the emotional needs? And how can you meet those needs? One of my kids is very touch oriented. And so if I can just reach over and pat him on the arm at church or in the car, he tends to settle down a little bit. And so that kind of helps him a lot. What is the social need that your child has? And what are those educational needs? So think about those things. And remember, if you have more than one child, you're going to need more than one of these stat sheets for each child. Remember that all of our kids are different. When you're finished with that, then you'll have a good standing for our next activity.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about an activity. It's called Creating Memories for Your Child's Hall of Fame. It's important that you regularly reassess what your children need from as they grow and mature. But when you and your kids interact together, you can actually meet significant needs while creating those memories that begin to fill up your child's Hall of Fame. So when adults were asked for some of their favorite memories of childhood, it's very common for them to recall one or more family vacations. And this is because they were together during those vacations and had a lot of time with their parents and siblings. So hopefully these togetherness times built bonds and memories of good times. And that took their special place in their own Hall of Fame. So what we want you to do is to create memories for your children's Hall of Fame. So one way that can help us do this is to participate in an activity called Creating Memories. And a lot of times I was going to say, let's start with this. So what we'd like you to do is you're going to write down on your sheet, on the stat sheet, favorite things I like to do. So favorite adventure I experienced could be experienced with my kids. And then you can write down, what's the best place I lived with my kids. And after school I worked I like to do this with my kids. So you want to write those things down. And you're going to do this individually with each child because it might be a little different with if you have more than one child. And then you're going to write down when we did this. So using those ideas, you're going to have a ticket for a Hall of Fame activities, but you're also going to do what I like to give. And what you're going to say is, I'm most proud of doing this for my kids. You're going to write down what those things were, again, for each child. And then when I did this before, if you did it before. You could also do something I do for my kids that makes them feel really good. And you're going to write that down. Or I give emotional support to my kids in this way. Or I give attention to my kids in this way. So you can write all this down. And then also you're going to write down what I need or receive from the kids. So that would be an example of my kids think that I'm really great at. A terrific gift that I received from my kids was. Another idea was what I really need from my kids is. So you're going to use the ideas from the Parents Playbook to make some tickets for Hall of Fame activities. And you definitely want to make sure that you pick choices that everybody likes, because it's not fair just picking something you like, but your kids wouldn't. You might think, oh, let's go to a historic, let's go to a place or a museum. And then that might be fun for you, but that might be very boring for those kids. So you definitely want to come together and talk about what would we all like to do. So, but before the next session, we want to look for an opportunity to talk through these activities with your kids and get their ideas. And you can either change or add what you have planned in order to include them and their ideas and interests. And this will ensure that your choices be enjoyed for everybody. Because how many times have we thought, hey, I know my parents would take us places, they thought this was the best place ever. And my sister and I were, and we tried to do that with our children. We'd sit down together and ask, hey, what do we all like to do? And, you know, make lists even. Hey, I like amusement parks, or I like to ride bikes, or I like to do this. And then we would all kind of agree on those. So everybody had something on that list that they enjoyed. So, but excuse me. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. So in the next section, Heather's going to discuss building a spirit of teamwork with your co-parent, which hopefully won't be too challenging.
All right, so we have talked a lot about building a spirit of teamwork with your children. So now we're going to shift gears just a little bit and talk about really getting that spirit of teamwork with your other co-parent. So it's crucial to have the best possible relationship with you, with the co-parent that you can. It really just sets a tone of cooperativeness. You can set guidelines, you know, really come up with the best scenarios, the best situation for your children that you can. So most of what we're going to talk about applies to co-parents who either live together or live separately. And then some of it, we're going to address parents who live separately specifically in this, because there are some unique arrangements in those, some unique features in those arrangements that we do need to kind of talk about and address. So as you think through this, if even if you live in the same household as your other co-parent, think about other relationships and other people who take care of your children. So if your children spend a lot of time with grandparents or with a nanny, you know, a babysitter, relatives, then these are some really good, just kind of basic ground rules that you come up with anybody who spends a significant amount of time with your children. So research has shown that some of the benefits of cooperative co-parenting include children develop feelings of stability. So this means that children who have cooperative co-parents experience less fighting, less tension, less anger, and less hateful emotions. They just feel more settled in their home and in their relationship. Children experience greater feelings of security. So they're, you know, less likely to feel abandoned or cut off from one of the parents when their co-parents cooperate and can get along together. Parents' role model healthy relationship skills. That means that the co-parents get along together. They're modeling that respectful, good behavior in problem solving, negotiating issues, emotional controls, conflict management, all those things. We are modeling that healthy relationship skills. Children gain from having relationships with both parents. So this is not to discredit the success that many single parents achieve. But overall, research has shown that two parents can really meet the needs in greater ways than just one parent. So we want to make sure that we are supporting and encouraging both relationships. Children are able to relate freely to both parents and form their own opinions. This means that children are less likely to feel torn between their parents or like they have to take sides. And then children stay in the role of dependence rather than becoming mini parents or mini adults. We don't want them to take on the role of a caregiver with one or both of the parents. So when co-parents can cooperate, then the children are less likely to feel they have to meet the social and emotional needs of their parents because that's not their job as a kid. And they're able to receive the healthy care and nurturing that they need from both co-parents. So developing that co-parenting plan is so important. So one idea for helping you as the parents develop a parenting plan with your co-parent is to focus on the ideas that we're going to come up with on this developing a co-parenting plan. So write out what you think each of you would like for the 11 highlighted areas. So there's a lot on here, but they're really great discussion topics that you all need to go over. So this can be done separately and then brought together for a healthy discussion. So if you tend to have tense or conflictual relationships, then agree only to discuss one of these items at a time. So just take them one at a time, work through them. But I have learned personally, being in this situation, that the more you can talk about and set in stone on the front end, the easier it is as you go through these situations as they arise. If you've already sat down and discussed all of these issues, then moving through these transitions becomes a lot easier. All right, so the first one, decisions. What decisions will you need to make? Thinking through all of those. So, some of the standard categories are education, religion, technology, other boundaries, bedtimes, curfews, medical treatment, social activities. Will they be made by just whoever the kids are with at the time? Will they always be made jointly? But sitting down and having that discussion, how are we going to make these decisions as we go forward? Next is communication. How will you talk with your other parent? You're going to set up regular times to kind of touch base. How do you communicate best? Through email, text message, on the phone, FaceTime. You just decide as co-parents how you're going to communicate the best. And even if you live in the same household, as parents, when kids get busy with sports and school and we have work and schedules, it feel like we're just passing each other in the hallway on our way to different things. So making sure that even parents who are in the same household come up with a time and a place that we're going to communicate. We're going to have those family meetings. We're going to have those parent meetings so that we make sure that we're on the same page. Schedules. How will you arrange and share schedules? So when will the children see each of their parents? How flexible do you want to be in scheduling? And remember, as our kids get older, we're going to have to be flexible. They're going to want to date, heaven forbid, and go to high school football games and go do all those things. And their schedule is dictated more by their activities and their friends and not so much our schedules. So coming up with some flexibility as they get older. Transitions. So how will I help my children transition from one parent to the other? So they should be kept light and fun. I always tell parents who ask me, pickups and drop-offs is have a good time, I love you, and that's it. So there's really no deep discussions, no having conflict or, you all know your triggers. So none of that is discussed during transition times because your kids are always with you. Respect. How do you portray and talk about your co-parent to the children? So transitions, like many aspects of co-parenting, require that you keep a positive or at least neutral portrayal of your child's co-parent. So making sure that we do have positive things to say, that we are always respectful of that other co-parent in front of the children. Because one thing to remember is our children delight in the fact that they are like their parents. So if we are constantly being negative and talking negative about the other parent, our children take that in and take that on as it's something that they have done or it's something wrong with them. Childcare. Who will arrange childcare when neither parent is available? So one of the terms is the right of first refusal. So if you have a conflict that comes up during your parenting time, then the right of first refusal is we always give the other parent the first chance. So before we call a babysitter, before we call other grandparents or other relatives, we always give that other parent a chance. Hey, I can't make this work. Can you pick them up or can you keep them during this time? Rules. So this is a big one. Do you have an agreement of basic rules and expectations for your child or children? This is a really important one because we're going to have different parenting styles. So it's important that we talk about rules, we talk about expectations at each house. So there's clear, consistent expectations. So our kids are going to play one parent against the other in a marriage situation. They are definitely going to play one parent against the other in a co-parenting situation. So just making sure with rules and expectations that we're on the same page. Discipline. How will you handle discipline? Will each parent handle discipline on their own? If a child misbehaves at mom's house, will they be disciplined at both mom and dad's house? If a child gets in trouble at school, Will they have discipline at both houses? Will the parents talk about it? So those are things that you need to come up with on the front end. How are we going to handle these situations as they come up? Calendars and charts is really important. Would your co-parenting be helped by sharing a calendar? So one of the things that has truly helped us as a family is a big dry erase board in the kitchen, and it has all of our activities, where everybody's going, when they're going to be at mom's, when they're going to be at dad's, so they can look a week ahead. They can look and know, okay, I have basketball, I need to make sure I take my shoes, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be there. It just gives everybody a sense of peace. And I skipped over emergencies. This is a big one. Just knowing, having that peace of mind and knowing if something comes up, how are we going to handle that? So I have learned in these years of co-parenting that what we give out is most of the time what we get back. So if we are open and honest and yes, I'll switch with you, and no, I don't care to do that, I understand, then that's most of the time what we're going to get back. It's common courtesy. So it's the same thing with emergencies. We would want to know if our child is at school and they get sick, or something happens and they fall off the monkey bars and they break an arm. So, if your child is with you, the first call is always to the doctor, whoever you need to call. Second call, common courtesy, always to the children's other parent. Just so they know what's going on, they can participate, they can be there in that emergency situation also. And that helps our children in that feeling of teamwork, safety, security, everybody's on the same team and working together. So there are many online resources out there to help you. So if you can't agree on these things, there's lots of online resources you can look at. There's mediation that you can go to help you work through some of these issues if you can't work it out on your own. It's also helpful talking to other parents who have made things work. So, talk to your children's friends whose parents are going through similar situations and find out what works for them. How did you come up with these rules? How did you come up with this schedule? And talk through things. Well, this may work for you and this may not work for you, but just keep working until you figure out a system that works for your family to have good teamwork.
So I hope you can take a moment to finish writing all that down. This session, there is a lot of great information that you can take home and talk to all the people that are involved in caring for your kids. So if you remember, this class kind of relates to parents and caregivers to coaches. So you could be in a co-parenting situation. You could be in a situation where you're a military family and one parent's been deployed, an incarcerated parent. You can have just tons of caregivers outside of your family helping you. And if I relate that back to coaching and baseball, you might have a pitching coach, a hitting coach, catching, someone that works with just the catcher, fielding, outfield, infield. You have tons of coaches. You have a head coach, you have assistant coaches. So what happens if that head coach gets sick and can't be at that next game? Well, hopefully the other coaches have the playbook and know how to pick up where they left off. And that's just what Heather was saying and the other girls, all of us as parents have others who are helping coach our kids. My kids have after school care because I'm still at work and they're not in school anymore. And so all those coaches, all those caregivers, we all need to be on the same page. And Heather went through a whole bunch of things to consider on what page are you on? And is everybody on the same page as you? And having game plans and how to get on the same page for the benefit of your children. If you think back to session 2, we had the baseball field. And, first base is where we all start. And you want to try to do better in your areas of parenting and caregiving to get to second base or to third or to home run. And today's session is all about that spirit of teamwork. How can we rely on each other? I need my kid's father to know that I rely on him to do his part, like he relies on me. And my after school care, all those teachers, I rely on you to get my kids from their classroom and to give them their snack and help them with their homework. And we all rely on each other in this spirit of teamwork to raise our kids, to raise our children. So there's a lot of activities in today's session. I hope that you're writing these things down At the end of this session, there'll be a link where you can get all these handouts if you want to print them before you listen again and take notes and make that game plan, because we all can hit home runs. But if we're not too careful, we all could strike out if we're not running our relationships. So these are great tips and great tools to keep you running your relationships so that you can hit a home run with your kids. So this next session is another activity. It's called Goals for Cooperative Co-Parenting. So all those who are involved with parenting your kids, this is for you. You got to have some goals. Where are you now? Assess. How is it going? Can we all rely on one another? Can my kids rely on me? Can I rely on them? Is it reciprocated? And if you want to hit a home run, because today you struck out, make some goals. So we all have different issues in our parenting that differ from situation to person. But the common goal is to keep improving our relationships with other coaches, with our other parents. And also remember that at times it can be challenging, and that's completely normal. So keep making your goals to improve and work together with all the coaches, all the caregivers of your children. So it's a continual work that we have to find these new ways to improve. And it's crucial for the health of our kids that we keep working towards that home run and improving. But remember that communicating sometimes with a co-parent and other caregivers can be hard, but it's better to communicate on a few things than not communicate at all. So keep working at the best that you can. Sometimes your communication isn't face-to-face. It could be through a text or an email, and that could be helpful because you're forgetful and you're like, what time am I supposed to be there to pick them up? They told me, but I can't remember. If you text it to me, I can just look back in my phone. Like Heather said, having a calendar. All caregivers have a calendar. Have a calendar where the kids can see what's going on so we all can be in the know. We can all be relying on each other because we know the game plan. We all have the same book. There's a very helpful golden rule, and it says for co-parenting, it says always provide the other parent information that you expect that parent to give you. So have that mutual reciprocation, that mutual respect with each other. So I'm just going to give a few guidelines that might be good tips that you can use to think about. Maybe that should be a goal for us. That's something that I'm already doing, but I want us to improve on it as co-parents, as coaches, as caregivers, or it's something that you just have never thought about and you need to start today because that would really help to get you off first base to hitting a double, going to second base. So I'll just read through these. Again, just jot them down if you think these would be helpful to improving your family team spirit, your family reliance. The first one is when conflict occurs, remember, we all have the same goal. All caregivers, all parents, co-parents have the same goal. For example, we both want the very best for our kids. So how do we make that happen? Or we want our children to be happy and healthy. So what's the best for time sharing or rules? Another one, talk directly with the co-parent. If that doesn't work, look at other forms of communication. We have cell phones, we can text, we can email, we can write letters. And even in your school with your children's teachers, or other caregivers, you might talk to them at pickup or drop off times and they are so busy they forget what you said, but maybe a letter in your school, your child's folder will get to that person, and that's the best communication method for them. Always, ask, how do you prefer me to communicate with you so we can be on the same page, that we can run this team well? Another idea is I will not argue parenting issues in front of my children. That can be a time when we're face-to-face or just adults without our kids listening to those conversations, especially if they get intense. I'll follow the child contact schedule and try to be flexible. Heather just mentioned that about as your kids get older, they have more things going on, they're more social. Sometimes we as parents have things going on and we just can't pick up today for some reason or drop off or whatever it is. So trying to be flexible. And then another could be focusing on what I can control rather than trying to change the other person, the other parent or caregiver. What can you control and what can't you control? And don't try to change that, but try to get on the same playbook. If my pitching coach was saying one thing, the batting coach was saying a different thing about pitching, I'm like, well, who do I listen to? What do I do? And it gets confusing for us as parents and for kids. So try to get on the same page and be flexible and don't change people. Another idea, if my co-parent and I differ about rules or discipline, I'll use reasons to explain my point of view. It's always good to explain your perspective and always, as a listener, try to listen to put yourself in their shoes to get their perspective. So an example might be, To improve the children's school performance, I want bedtime to be 8 p.m. rather than 9 p.m. So, why is this bedtime too late? What are your reasonings? Help them understand your perspective. And we all want to be understood. That's where we have conflicts and we lose that team spirit if we aren't being understood and we get mad and grumpy. So use your explanation, give reasons for why you feel this way. Another idea, I won't preach. I'll use I'm better than you. I won't use an I'm better than you tone or expect them to respond immediately. Just communicate the way that you'd want someone to communicate with you. Have that respect. Another idea, I'll learn to better manage conflict and I'll do my best to negotiate or compromise when I co-parent. And if my coach is like, our practice is today at 10 o'clock, rain or shine, you're like, well, I've got a big test today, coach, I can't be there. They're like, I don't care about your, you want to be able to negotiate and be flexible, just like you want them to do to you, you do it with them. So try to be flexible. I'll watch my entrance and exit lines. I won't be negative, like saying, you could have at least given him a bath, or can't you ever be on time? Watch your entrance and exit times. Another idea, if I suspect my co-parent's abusing drugs or alcohol or neglecting or abusing my children, I'll talk directly to my attorney. Another idea, I will teach my children how to get help if they may be in a dangerous situation at any time. And a good example of that is my co-parent may neglect them if they're drinking, or I'll teach my children how to contact me or a neighbor, how to call help for emergencies. And that's something good to teach your kids all the time. Emergencies happen and we're not with them. So what do? I'm hoping that all the coaches know what to do, but I need to teach my kids so they can, take care of themselves if that's the situation they're in. And the last idea, there's tons of these ideas. You can start the conversation after this activity session. Just think of other ideas where you want to improve. But the last one I have for you is I'll learn what community resources are available to help me better learn how to co-parent. There's divorce education programs, support groups, and other divorced parents. And as we parent our kids, whatever your situation is, we always need others to support us and to look towards, if your kids are young, you might look for someone who has kids in the next couple of grades higher so that you can ask them, okay, what did you do? How did it work out? Especially if school years are ending and they're moving on to another school, maybe they're moving to the high school and you've never had a kid there, find parents who've been there, done that, and you can just talk to them, get knowledge, and then you can form your family game plan just based on what you know of other parents who've been through things. So talk to each other, have a good community of resources that you can rely on, because you're never meant to parent alone. So find those resources. In Extension, we have lots of great parenting classes and things to support you on your journey. This Our Home Runs program is fantastic, and just getting these tools, these tips, these strategies, and then learning how you want to implement them into your family, into your team to have that awesome, strong team with those great bonds. So hope you enjoyed those. Make your goals, make your game plan, and just remember this is an ongoing thing you want to keep working at, improving and hitting those home runs, but recognizing when you're striking out, and then think about why it's happening and what can I implement as a goal, and get all the caregivers on board, all the coaches on board to help with your kids. So next we're gonna go into a replay, and Lisa is going to lead us through this activity.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. That was great. So for our replay, how is your teamwork? So in this session, you worked on teamwork between you and your kids. The first included the ways that your children rely on you. The third connection in RAM is rely. You identified and set goals to meet your most significant physical, emotional, social, and educational needs, and the ways that you work to make them feel secure. You then reflected on some of the best times between you and your children and made tickets for future activities that will go into your child's Hall of Fame. You ended this session by exploring your co-parenting relationship and setting goals to improve your co-parenting teamwork. So now, if you would take a moment to think about your relationship with each of your kids. Identify the base that you feel like they're on in this area of teamwork. Identify something you can do with each of your children individually to move them to the next base. So how are your family team talks? Are you all striking out? Are you on first base? Are you on second base? Have you made it to third base? Are you guys making a home run? What is something that you can promise to do to move from where you are to the next base in this important area of meeting each other's needs?
All right. Thank you for joining us as we learned about teamwork today and how it relates to family. I have learned a lot of tips, and I hope you have too. I've taken lots of notes. I hope you join us next time as we learn about team commitment.